if we all had a common understanding and a common way of referring to helpful and unhelpful thinking, then it sort of becomes a team norm or an organisational norm. It's an expected thing to discuss.
The question is, from Thinking Focus.
So the question is, how do you turn thinking to your competitive advantage? Hello, I'm Ricky from Thinking Focus.
Hi, I'm Rob Smith from Thinking Focus.
The question is, from Thinking Focus. A podcast about how we sometimes get in our own way and what we can do about it.
So that's really interesting because it causes me to think about harnessing the thinking that you have within a team or an organisation to give you that competitive edge or competitive advantage. So in other words, it's not thinking in isolation. So my first answer to that would be collaborative thinking, getting people to use some sort of awareness and understanding around their joint or collective thinking to bring something that is more advantageous to the organisation, bring a competitive edge.
Yeah, and I think it's a recognition that thinking is important.
Sure.
And, we've talked about in previous podcasts how organisations don't necessarily value thinking because they're so busy measuring output, whereas thinking's kind of an input.
Well, and for me, that's why I was making reference to the collaborative effort, because actually the collaborative effort is typically placed on doing something, isn't it, rather than collectively or collaboratively thinking. So if we're harnessing the thinking ability of a group of people to give them thinking skills, thinking structures, but you're sort of making a conscious effort to enable people to think and do in a better way to get you a better result.
So knowing what we do about thinking, and we kind of know a lot given all the work that we've done in this,
right.
What practical things can we share that would help organisations to start to leverage better quality thinking?
I think practical things for me are enable people to understand the importance of having goals and objectives and how to define them and get real clarity about them. To give people and make use of some creative thinking tools on the back of your goals and objectives. So how are we going to do that then? So where's our clarity? Where's our how-to? And also to give and share some critical thinking tools to enable us to make decisions, organise our thinking, get some priorities, make some critical choices based on likelihood, risk, balance, all of that sort of stuff. So gain clarity, get some creative solutions on the back of that, make some choices on the back of those creative solutions.
That's a nice little process you defined there, Rob. Well done. That's great. But what about if I'm not sure I believe in the plan or believe in the goal? That's going to manifest itself in a whole host of unhelpful thinking. So the goal might be right, but I'm not sure I buy into this in terms of confidence level.
So for me, belief and confidence is part of the goal. You can't do goal thinking without actually asking questions around what the level of belief is and helping people to actually get to a higher level of belief if that's needed.
So how would we overcome people that have got some challenges around belief? They're externalising some thoughts around.
Well, you've mentioned unhelpful thinking, first of all. So an awareness of how your thinking works and that it's entirely natural for people to have both helpful thinking and unhelpful thinking about any element of their work and any element of the goal or objective that you're going after is an important starting point. If people have that awareness of that concept, if you like, of unhelpful thoughts, then when you are defining goals, when you're looking at business-wide or team-wide goals and objectives, it's encouraging any unhelpful thinking that might exist around the likelihood of that goal or the clarity of that goal or the belief in that goal, even the purpose behind the goal, to emerge at that point in time, because that would help us to greater clarify that goal. Put it this way, if we were very cold and clinical and rational about, well, the goal is this. By this date, we're going to achieve X number of sales increase or this amount of efficiency, full stop. You're not allowing any language, discussion, belief, confidence, assessment around whether or not people believe that they can get there or not.
So it's important that people get this opportunity to go,
hang on a second.
I'm not sure about this.
Yeah.
And here are the reasons behind that. And those reasons might be assumed. They might be built on a set of beliefs that aren't true.
Yeah.
Or they might be real.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we want to understand that and externalise it. I mean, we've all been involved in projects, I'm sure you have, where at the end of it, it's probably not gone quite as planned. And so somebody's gone, yeah, I knew it wouldn't happen.
Sure.
I knew we wouldn't get there on time, in budget.
Yeah.
And you kind of go, well, if we'd have known that earlier, even at the start, we might have been able to either deal with it, mitigate it, or handle that in a particular way.
And part of that is that we don't know what that end result is, and we're not expecting people to know that, but we're actually asking people to check their level of belief or confidence against what they expect the outcome could be, or what their view of the world might be based on what it is you're trying to achieve. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, I've worked in a program where the sales uplift for that program was to actually increase sales over the course of a year by 30%. If that had just been boldly stated, to your point around belief, most people in that team would go 30%, can't do 30%, because their experience before was they were lucky to get to double-digit growth, and now you're asking me for something that's just beyond the norm.
Sure.
However, if you then ask people about, we would like to increase our sales, or we'd like to do whatever the goal happens to be, what do you think you can go for? Let's test out what your current belief is, and let's do some, for want of a better description, some blue sky thinking, some exploring of the possibilities. Let's think about, what might be possible if. My experience is that people surprise you with their optimism around what might be possible, and your number could probably come quite close to the number that you would really like to get from the team. That's only half the battle, though, because at the moment we're just defining a goal. You also need to check for belief levels and confidence levels when you go through the how-to thinking.
Sure.
You also need to check for belief and confidence levels when you look at the critical thinking a bit later.
So if, to kind of reflect back, what we're really saying is then encourage, be open to unhelpful thinking, because it's a real...
Get it out.
Get it out.
Yeah.
Get it understood, clarified, and find some opportunities to deal with that.
Absolutely.
In whatever way. Either, squash some beliefs or assumptions that aren't real, tackle some real issues that kind of emerge, and that'll be the gateway to success and achievement in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've used some terminology in here. We've used unhelpful thinking, we've used helpful thinking. But I imagine there are some benefits to having that language in an organisation.
Sure. If we all had a common understanding and a common way of referring to helpful and unhelpful thinking, then it sort of becomes a team norm or an organisational norm. It's an expected thing to not only acknowledge, but also to discuss. So just imagine if we could save ourselves some time, effort and energy in a team where unhelpful thinking was part of the psyche. That could be addressed in any meeting, any goal definition, any project scope, to go, okay, before we go any further, let's get all unhelpful thoughts out. If everyone then knew what was expected of them, two things happen. They know that actually, yes, you're right, I was having unhelpful thinking. So the label or the multiple labels of that unhelpful thinking is immediately at the forefront of their mind instead of buried. But secondly, there's an encouragement that then gets shared so that collectively, collaboratively, even individually, the opportunity is to tackle that unhelpful thinking before we go any further forward. And I think that becomes cultural for the team.
And we've seen that positive impact on a number of client projects we've worked on where they feel like they've now been given the permission to share.
Sure.
They're not waiting to be invited. They, hang on a minute, I just need to raise putting the hand up, clearly. To kind of raise that hand, say, I have an issue here, and I want to explore it. It could be real, it could be imagined, it could be assumed, but it gives the opportunity for the group, the team, the project group, whichever, to deal with that and front that out, as opposed to going, oh, I'm not going to raise it because. So it encourages that sharing much more openly than we've seen in the past in terms of other groups.
If I was to exaggerate that the other way around and say that maybe that didn't happen at all, right? Maybe there was one person in a group, in a project team.
Or the naysayer.
Yeah, who has unhelpful thoughts, but is the person who will be the naysayer, but it's not a team norm. Every single time that naysayer opens their mouth, right?
Oh, here we go again.
Exactly. That's the response. Their eyebrows go up, people look at each other, they nudge each other.
And actually they're playing an extremely valuable part.
Yeah.
And what we want is everybody to feel like they can say it.
Absolutely. And the interesting thing is that even some of those people in the rest of that audience who are nudging other people, raising the eyebrows, the naysayer is probably saying things that they feel themselves
and are thinking,
but actually it's hidden away, they're not doing anything with it. And that's the sort of longer term damage is, and you described it before, when things don't go according to plan, these are the other people who jump on the bandwagon and go, yeah, but I didn't think it was going to work. Well, why didn't you say so at the time? Well, but nobody invited me to. So there's an absolute advantage to having a common language, a common reference around something like unhelpful and helpful thinking, so that people recognise it's natural, but people are encouraged to get it out. Why? Because it's going to be dealt with. It gives an opportunity for it to be dealt with.
So common language, but also this permission, this encouragement to actively share this unhelpful thinking, because the unhelpful thinking is where the opportunity to learn, to grow, to accelerate in terms of performance. So two real advantages that businesses could leverage by just looking at thinking a little bit differently.
Sure, absolutely.
Brilliant. Well done. Thanks, Rob.
Well, thanks for that. Good to speak to you.
Thinking Focus works with teams and business units in organisations around the world, helping them achieve breakthroughs by enabling them to think differently. To find out more about our work and how we could help your organisation, go to www.thinkingfocus.com.